I read something that I thought was very interesting in this book. Or it's about orbs. You wrote it many years ago, and I found it in the shelf. You wrote about priests and priestesses from Golden Atlantis, like Ra and Thoth and Isis and Horus, and that they dispersed out to different places on Earth. And I thought that was so interesting, and I hope you remember some of it, even though it was years ago. That if you can tell us a little bit about that, because I've always been especially drawn to Ra and those Egyptian ones and Isis. So can you tell us a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah, there's also a lot more information in Discover Atlantis. At the end of Atlantis, there were 12 tribes. And one of those high priests or priestesses was in charge of each of those tribes. They made a crystal skull which contained all the information of their tribes, and they took this crystal skull with them. So when the fall came, then they each took those remaining in their tribes of high frequency to a different part of the planet that had already been prepared for them. So as you know, Ra went to Egypt, and there were those who went to the Egyptian countries and became gods in Egypt, and there were those who went to South America, like Peru and the Incas, the Aztecs. All of those, Isis, they were all high priestesses in the golden era of Atlantis, taking their particular brand of knowledge with them. For example, Zeus carried pure white peace energy. He took his tribe to Tibet, and they started the Buddhist religion of peace. And so all the different parts of the planet that carry great wisdom, it nearly all comes from the golden era of Atlantis.
So, did they live for a long time? I mean, it seems like they accomplished a lot. Like, who is Ra? Like, you're saying he's a priest, for instance, just to take Ra. I've never quite understood what Ra is and what Horus and Isis. I mean, we know them in our history, but...
You want to know about the energy of a high priest or priestess.
Well, is it a human?
Sorry?
Is it a human being, or just an advanced human being, or is it a god, or is it like something in between? Or
I'm just going to tell you. The high priests and priestesses were at the upper level of the fifth dimension. But even they in that time could only move into the sixth dimension for a very short time. And then they would have to come back into their physical body in order to maintain the body. Now, they had awesome gifts. They had powers beyond our comprehension. They could fly. They could telepathically communicate with other planes of existence, other universes. They oversaw the buildings of the great temples of Atlantis. They were amazing. They would gather at the great temple every so often, and a great trapdoor would open up, and they would pour their light and their energy onto the people below. And the people below would receive this light into their energy fields, and it would help them to maintain their high frequency too. And then in exchange, they would send love energy back to the high priests and priestesses. So there was a continuation of constant respect, balance, and love going on between all the people of that time, which is how they maintained the energy, how they were able to communicate with the elemental beings in crystals and allow the crystals to do so much.
So would you say that Ra is kind of a divinity now that we can contact and have as a guide or pray to, for instance?
Ra is a very high frequency master. They were all masters. They were all on the human ray. They were not angelic. And so, because the angelic ray is different from the human ray. And so they were all high frequency masters who came in at that time to help.
Very interesting. And I just wrote down that Thoth went to Machu Picchu, Isis to South America, to Aztec,
yeah.
Aztec, Horus to Babylon, and Ra to Egypt to build the Sphinx.
And the pyramids.
And the pyramids. So he was involved with that. Well, that makes sense. This is really exciting news. I'm looking forward to it when it comes to the history books, you know?
Won't that be good?
Yes.